Hello and welcome to an overview of the content marketing strategies courseware. This is refreshing older content here from chapter 13. A quick note before we dig in. These slides are abbreviated. They are not the entire slide deck that you may be familiar with, but rather I have taken some liberties this time around to talk about refreshing older content and repurposing content from the lens of artificial intelligence and using it for uh, improvement, saving time, hopefully saving money, and providing the best outcome for you, the marketer, the social media marketer, or whoever it is that, whatever role it is that you are. So, we're just going to really focus on two sections today. And then I'm going to do a really quick walkthrough of an AI tool that I like to use just to show kind of the full power of repurposing content. And first off, we are going to talk about refreshing older content, and then we will talk about the repurposing. I think the repurposing is a little bit more fun, but also refreshing older content is maybe the lowest hanging fruit on the content marketing tree that somebody can have. And the reason for that is most of the time, like take me for example, I've been blogging for my company for about 5 years. And when I first started, I was very ambitious. I wrote a lot of blog posts, and a lot of the topics were really just relevant for the current time. But at the same time, I wrote some evergreen content for the very exact reason that I wanted it to be relevant for a long time. However, if I don't go back and update that material, and we'll go walk through what that is, you still lose the relevance, even with evergreen. And that's one of the big misnomers is that if I create a piece of evergreen content, like a how to tie a tie, that's going to be relevant at the top of Google search engine results forever. Except that's not how it goes. Sure, there is the occasional unicorn post that you'll see from 2012 that's received millions of hits, but that is not common. And especially in today's world, there are millions of blog posts written per day, many of them now automatically generated by AI programs that know all of the tricks of the trade when it comes to search engine optimization. So it's really up to you or the marketer, the content marketer, whatever, to consistently go back, double check the content that is being put out there so that you have an opportunity to bring in and continue to bring in more traffic from your SERPs. Now, I will say this, it does take a little bit of time. This is not a 5-minute thing. I kind of put this at like a 15 to 20-minute process from start to finish, but that's still a fraction of the time it would take you to write something completely new. And I like to look at this example from many years ago. And Databox had a blog post where they just talked about the amount of like new traffic that they got from an article that they had refreshed. And they saw a really quick 12% increase in traffic almost instantly from the time that they published their updated article. And that led me to do some testing myself. And my experience with this, actually, 12% seems pretty low compared to what I've seen. But that's a very large, prevalent analytics company. And I'm not going to share my own proprietary data here, but I will say 12% is a pretty standard number. But also, you need to be very strategic about what it is that you're going to be updating. And I have the first step being, where is your content currently located on a search engine results page? And the way that I kind of look at it is we are beyond the days of Google pages where the first 10 results are on page 1, 11 through 20 are on page 2, and so on and so forth. We don't yet have a ton of data to show whether that has helped results 11 through 30 or 11 and later, or if it's hurt them. when we think about what Google wants to do, Google claims that they are going to try to deliver you, the searcher, the content that is going to provide you with the data, with the information that you need, the information that you want, the information that you're looking for. Now, how do you interpret that? Well, it remains, Google can be pretty mysterious, but when I think about from an updating content perspective, I think of something that's fairly relevant and somewhat fresh. And when you think about the last couple of Google updates, they are largely focused on relevancy, which also requires somewhat timely. And I still believe that the original thought process of updating results 11 through 30 is the most important. Now, when I say 11 through 30, I don't, this video does not go into search engine optimization. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but if you search, if you're a blogger, if you're a content marketer, you know what keyword terms your articles are coming up for, right? You know what keywords are that they're, where they're going to appear. And so if you have a SERP, for me, I always do an annual marketing report, a marketing salary report. And my big keyword every summer is average marketing salary. That is a keyword that is often searched by entry-level marketers, outgoing college seniors, graduate students, just a lot of the target audience that I am, marketing to. And I've noticed a lot of fluctuation over the years, but one thing that has remained steady for a while is that it usually hovers between 20 and 40. Now, that every summer then becomes where I go and I try to get that keyword back up into the top 10. Now, if it had been between like 100 and 200, then that's a much more daunting task, because the improvements in click-through rate and engagement rate that you're going to see from jumping from, say, 30 to 9 is significantly greater than if you jump from 130 all the way to even to 9. But also, it's also going to be a significantly easier task, because the latter, you're clearly missing something if you're not even in the top 100. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Whereas if you're appearing in the first 30-ish results, you're okay. You just have to make some moderate improvements. Now, the other thing is you want to make sure that you are finding past high performing content. So, if you go, and when I like to think about this list through a social media lens, is if I'm a social media manager and I post, blogs from my website every, 2 or 3 times a week, I should know which blog posts have performed the best on social. And this is something that I should be able to recall pretty quickly. For me, I have several clients, and a lot of whom I promote their blog posts. And if they're evergreen, then I can, mark it down and say, okay, I can go back and post this later again, reshare it. But I always have in the front of my mind the top 3 to 4 that are like old standbys. I know they're going to do well on social. I know they're going to get a lot of likes. I know they'll get some shares and some comments. And the same applies here. What has performed well in the past that might be a little outdated now, where with a little bit of optimization, you can get even greater performance out of it, even greater mileage. And this is where the analytics come in. And I hesitate to go too far down this path here, because this is not what this chapter is about. But at the same time, you do need to understand the role of analytics when it comes to updating content. So first, how long are people spending on the page? Is this something that's engaging? Is it something that people are enjoying? And then what is the traffic like from social media or from email marketing? If you get a lot of visits from social or from email, that shows that there is an interest in the topic. With Google, the click-through rate, for example, that's just that article or that piece of content compared to very similar pieces of content. On social media and an email, it's standing out from the crowd because there's hundreds, if not thousands, of other links that people can click on, and they chose that link. So that's why I like to really inflate the value of traffic from social media or email marketing when it comes to finding a piece of content to update. Then finally, there's the conversion percentage if you can track it, if that leads to any new leads, any new business, and new sales. Most companies have, to this day, struggled to really set up the conversion rate of certain pages, partially because they just don't have the infrastructure, but also somewhat because they cannot agree on the attribution model, which that is for another day as well. And I just want to highlight something really quick. If you have two articles, these are the numbers that you have. Which one is going to be a better candidate to update? If I'm looking at these two, I would think the second one is in a better spot because the problem here is that a 9-second average duration could be completely through like Facebook ads where it's just people fat thumbing over to your article and leaving. On the other hand, a 4-minute, 25-second average duration is a rich text, engaging, strong article. Only 100 views, so not the greatest sample size, but there's something there that you can work with. So you want to think about not the vanity metrics, not the traffic, but rather the engagement metrics. That is what you should be judging your content on. Next up, you want to make sure that if this is something that isn't evergreen, it might be about an event or about something that was trending. That's where you can still update it, but then it does make it a little bit more time consuming. You do have to put in a little bit more effort. And the example that I like to talk about is a website that reviews movies. And a movie review doesn't technically go out of style or out of date. The thing that changes is that like the time references that happen. And also a lot of times the mentions to current events. If you think about a movie from the 1990s, for example, if somebody reviewed Jurassic Park in 1993 when it came out, and you went back today to update it, not that the internet was really prevalent back then, there'd be a lot of changes that would need to be made. On the other hand, if you are seeing Jurassic Park for the first time, maybe you reviewed it like 6 months ago, and then you went back to update it this time, at this point, it can become pretty much evergreen because there's not a lot of time sensitive material in there. And with just a couple of tweaks, you didn't just see Jurassic Park this weekend, you saw it. You're in a much better spot to continue to attract visitors, and you're not dating yourself with that timestamp. Now, how do we do this? I'm not going to go through the lengthy keyword search and replace piece here, but I will say that keywords that like I think most people that are watching this are familiar with the idea that search engine optimization is based on the idea of being able to get your content to appear on a search engine results page for a given keyword. Those keywords change, not the keywords in your article, but trending keywords change over time. And I like to use this TikTok example. TikTok is always in the news. Twitter is always in the news. Meta, Facebook, always in the news. All these social networks are always in the news. But then so too is it means changing. The changing tide here is that the keywords that people are searching are always going to change because like TikTok, one day gets banned on government devices. The next day it's banned in Montana. Day after that, you have the TikTok company, ByteDance, suing the state of Montana. And then after that, you have even greater fallout from there. You think about Twitter. When Elon Musk took over at the end of October of 2022, you had seemingly more news and more updates and these promises that he was doing or people that he was laying off on a regular basis. And the keywords were always changing. And there was no singular, one keyword that would stick with all these platforms. And as a result, if you wrote an article, and I'm a prime example, I wrote an article about what would happen if Twitter went down, if Twitter crashed. if it was gone forever. Obviously, that's not going to happen, at least not right now. So it's not the best example of an article I could update, but I could go back and I could update it to say, okay, as of May, as of 6 months after I wrote this article, is TikTok or is Twitter going to go down in flames? A lot of my content would change. I could change the keyword, but also I'd be in a better spot where I could start getting more traffic, because the idea that TikTok is going, or that, man, I keep confusing the two. The idea that Twitter is going to get shut down now is not nearly as relevant as it was in October, November of 2022, when it was a very real scare. And we saw news and reports about all this stuff that was happening. One thing I did want to also mention is the time reference note. As soon as you put in a day or a date, you are dating the article. By that, like yesterday, for example, or recently. And there are times when you can disguise those where you don't know what today is. I mean, technically here, the way that I am speaking through this video, I have tried really hard to avoid time references. I am trying to utilize dates as absolutes. So Twitter was taken over or switched over to Elon Musk in October of 2022. If I had said last month, I mean, it's not November now, but if I had said last month when Twitter got taken over by Elon Musk, then in watching this video that it was recorded in November of 2022. But if you were to say, putting dates around everything, you're in a much better spot. Now, just a couple other key notes here for general content relevancy. Again, Google values content relevancy, and so does social media. I did an experiment years ago where I shared on Facebook and LinkedIn. I didn't do it with Twitter, Instagram. Facebook and LinkedIn, I shared a variety of articles on some of the business pages that I had. They were a mix of third-party and owned media. And at the same time, I tried to share a mix of old versus new content. And I did my best. I tried to optimize them as well as I could. So if it was an article from like 2012, I would go in and say, like, here, this is from the vault. Check out this article that's still relevant today. If it was something from yesterday that was published, like news in all caps, trying to get the most mileage out of it as I could. And it was shocking to see that social media, or I guess users on social media, or maybe the social media algorithms, pretty much treat relevancy, the idea of relevancy in content today, the same as Google. The older articles got very, very, very few impressions, very few engagements, very few clicks. All the new stuff was all the rage and got all of the likes, all of the engagements, and all of the clicks. And now I am here, standing there after 30 days thinking, I have articles that I'm sharing that's, within, 72 hours or something. We're getting like 4 times the engagements and 5 times the impressions. It wasn't even close. There was maybe one outlier on Facebook, but it was not surprising, but it was surprising at the same time, because it told me that relevancy is not just a Google term. It is something that is prevalent throughout social media as well. And that is really, can really be damaging to a brand when it comes to a content strategy and a social media strategy. So when we think about general content relevancy, you want to just go through a couple of steps. You want to optimize your content for the new keywords. We talked about that before. Look at the data. In the process of my reviewing and updating the content marketing strategies courseware, most of the updates that I made were data points, because I had originally was looking at data from 2020, 2021. And I'm going through in 2023, updating this material, thinking like, man, people read this in 2024. They're going to be pretty mad that they're looking at 4-year-old data. And so I would have to go in and spend most of my time looking for the most recent numbers, because that makes it relevant. That makes it valuable. If you look at something with data from 4 years ago, you immediately discredit it, and all that authority is lost. This is also a time to check your links, especially in articles. In a piece like this, like what I'm doing here, talking, there's no links per se. Although I will show an image here that dates that I did not take out, but you want to make sure that your links are still valid, making sure that you have internal linking if you have any new articles, and change the published dates. Google knows if you go through and you update an article. So it's not like republishing an article with a new date loses its like legacy SEO equity or something, which is all a load of bull. That's not a thing. But rather, by updating the publishing date to today, the people that are searching, they want relevant content. It's pretty rare that people search something because they're looking for material from 10 years ago. And if they are, they're usually savvy enough to put the date in there. Like, I'm looking for this between these time periods, content published between 2010 and 2011. Rather, they are looking for the most up-to-date and fresh content available. You also want to make sure you update your headlines, because one of my best practices for headline writing is to include the year. Some empirical data from Neil Patel and his company showed that headlines with years did way better on search engine results pages than those without them. I think that's largely limited to marketing blogs, but at the same time, it's not like only marketing people are looking for the newest and most relevant stuff. You think about current events, you think about sports, you think about politics, all that stuff. It is all kind of the here and now. It's all about the today. And here's the art. Here's the image that I was talking about before. And this company has been bought since I found this, so I cannot find if there's an article, this article rewritten today. I even went into the Wayback Machine, couldn't find anything here. The link doesn't exist. The limit does not exist. And this article, I originally pulled this in 2021. Email list cleaning, best practices and services. Updated 2021, pretty obviously. Okay, there was a version in 2020, probably one in 2019, et cetera, et cetera. And this just goes to show you, like, hey, we went in and we updated this. It's fresh. You can trust this. And in a topic like digital marketing and like social media, specifically social media, the trends change so frequently, so often, that having something like this where it says updated with the current year, I realize it's not the current year, just an example, really makes all the difference. And again, it builds authority rather than knocking it down. I'm at the repurposing content section. I have spent a long time going through the updating content, so I'm going to cut it here, and I will post part 2 here, all about repurposing content, going into AI, how to take content from one form, changing it into another. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you. We'll be back shortly with the next section here.